So if you were to ask Carlos Sainz if he was happy with his start to his 2025 season, I think he would probably tell you he's not happy about it at all. He's been nowhere near Alex Albon. He's only got through to Q3 once, compared to Albon getting through to Q3 3 times. And then his race pace hasn't really been that much better. So what's going on with Carlos? Well, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, keep watching to find out why, and let's talk about it. So before we get into it, this is a video I never really expected to make. But so far in 2025, Carlos Sainz has really struggled. And I think the main reason for this is Carlos is still trying to adapt to the Williams compared to the Ferrari, which he has been used to for the last few seasons now. Carlos has been in F1 for 10 years now, and he's driven for nearly half the teams on the grid, these being Toro Rosso, now known as Racing Bulls, Renault, now known as Alpine, then McLaren, and obviously Ferrari, and now Williams. So when it comes to drivers talking about how different cars feel different, Carlos Sainz is more than qualified to talk about that. And that is what he said. Before the Bahrain Grand Prix, Carlos mentioned how the Mercedes power unit, the power unit Williams are currently using, is the biggest change compared to the Williams and obviously the Ferrari. There's also things in the way the team operates with upshifts and downshifts and the way they do things to make the power unit work that, as you can see in Australia, caught me out. But at the same time, you need to go through the experience to understand this happens only in the Mercedes power unit and not in the Ferrari. So by the sounds of it, Carlos Sainz is still struggling to adapt to the Williams. And what also doesn't really help Carlos is he's never really had any experience with a Mercedes engine before. So it's going to take him a while to adapt to that, and it probably explains why he's been so slow. And in Bahrain, I think we started to see the better version of Carlos Sainz. He was much quicker than Albon in qualifying, and he got through to Q3 whilst Albon got knocked out in Q1. But why else may Carlos be struggling compared to his teammate? Well, Alex Albon has been in the Williams now since 2022, so this is his 4th season in that car already. Therefore, he's going to know the car like the back of his hand. He understands the car more compared to Carlos. He knows where the car is strong and where it is weak, which ultimately gives Alexander Albon the muscle memory to be able to get the best out of the Williams car, which he has been doing so far in 2025. He's probably been the most impressive driver on the grid, you'd say, so far. I think going into the 2025 season, a lot of people were expecting Carlos Sainz to be beating Albon, to be obliterating Albon, and that's myself included. But it's been the other way around. And a lot of people, I feel like, may have underestimated Alex Albon a bit, and that's another thing I'm guilty of, so did I. But Carlos Sainz has been that impressive during the last few seasons in his F1 career. I think it was expected. And no one would blame you for saying, I think Carlos Sainz will completely dominate Alexander Albon. But like I mentioned, Albon has that muscle memory of the Williams, which Carlos doesn't have yet. He doesn't yet have the knowledge and understanding he needs to get the best out of a Williams car. And compared to the Ferrari, the Williams is obviously a little bit of a downgrade. And again, what doesn't really help Carlos that much is whenever he's moved teams before, he's always moved teams for an upgrade, never a downgrade. Meaning the car he was moving into was going to be a quicker car compared to what he was used to, so there was more performance to be gained rather than find out where he's going to be losing performance. And you could argue that going into a slower car is going to make you lose performance because you're not going to be used to driving that slower car. That car's going to be slower in certain corners compared to a faster car like the Ferrari, which Carlos was in. So there's more for Carlos to adapt to. Some corners he might have to go into a different gear compared to what he was used to in a Ferrari. There's some corners where he might be having to brake slightly earlier for. There's corners that are high speed corners, and in a Ferrari you might be able to take them flat out. However, in a Williams, because they have less downforce, you wouldn't be able to take them flat out, and Carlos isn't used to that. And because Carlos is going into these corners not how he would want to go into them, with them having less grip being in the Williams car, it's probably going to cause him some oversteer and understeer, which ultimately is going to cost him lap time. And again, I'll say, as Alex Albon has more understanding of the Williams car, he won't be getting as much oversteer and understeer because he knows how to drive that car through them corners. So he's not going to be costing himself as much lap time, meaning that he's quicker than Carlos Sainz at the moment. And I feel like once Carlos Sainz gets the muscle memory he needs from the Williams car and he understands it more, then he will be matching Albon, probably maybe even beating him, because I still think Albon is not as great as Sainz, despite what we have seen so far in 2025. Don't get me wrong, Alex Albon is an amazing driver, and I will say again, one of the most impressive drivers so far in 2025. But I still feel Carlos is the better driver. I just hope we don't really see a situation where Daniel Ricciardo went to McLaren and he all of a sudden lost all his pace and probably ruined his reputation in F1 as a good driver. Do I think we'll see that with Carlos? No, not really. And again, I will say in Bahrain last weekend, he was much, much better. And we're starting to see the Carlos Sainz we've seen over the last few seasons, which is a positive sign. And he has shown that maybe he is finally starting to adapt to the Williams and get a better understanding of it, which ultimately makes sense because we are 4 races into the season now. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you think Carlos Sainz will pick things up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future F1 news and updates. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a comment, leave a like, and I'll see you all in the next one.